He didn't fire the host, but he did end up accidentally or on purpose.
There you go. Go to Grammarly.com. They'll help you with that.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is true.
Is it AI?
Just go wild.
Throwing Mike McCarthy's play calling under the bus. Here's Jerry's critique and McCarthy's response.
The types of things that we all think we should be looking at is, well, we're designing bad plays or we're designing bad concepts.
I talk to Jerry all the time. You know, we've had time to go through the self-scout, so I can't really. I didn't see the comments specifically, so but I don't think we have bad concepts and bad plays. But I'll go back and check.
Okay, your reaction to this?
This is a bunch of hot garbage from Jerry Jones. Straight garbage and foolishness from Jerry Jones. And I mean it. I mean, first of all, Derrick Henry wouldn't be having a career year if he was in Dallas. Okay, maybe he wouldn't be on pace to break the all-time rushing record.
So
but
you agree with Jerry?
What we do know is that he'd be better than Rico Dowdle and an old Ezekiel Elliott. We do know that. And we do know that Dak Prescott would be much better with a run game because that's been his history. And then, Jerry, for him to go on about, we don't run that type of offense. Well, Baltimore didn't either. Baltimore has shifted their offense a bit because that's what you do when you get a Hall of Famer. You accommodate him in your system. So you could have done that in Dallas. And then he added on, I don't know if it was on the tape or not, when he talked, he lied again, Nick. You know this about we didn't have the money either. We needed it for other people. No, you could have had the money for Derrick Henry. So this is just foolishness. And then to go off about the play, not well-designed plays and
bad concepts.
Bad concepts. Yeah. Would those be the same plays and concepts that helped you win 12 games last year? It's the same offensive coordinator, same play caller, same head coach. So he doesn't want to take responsibility for not putting the pieces together for Mike McCarthy to do well. This is just exhibit 4087. 4,087 for why Jerry Jones should speak like 1/100th less in the public than he does. It might be 1/1000. Less. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like,
I got it.
He's speaking way too much because now, look, they have a huge game.
You don't say.
Coming off the bye, San Francisco's vulnerable. You need this W, and he has just created another distraction. Yeah. Players are wondering, what Jerry talking about? Mike McCarthy, you know that's going to be in the back of his head. This is some nonsense. And look, I am hard but fair on the Cowboys players. When they don't perform well, when they perform poorly, I call them out for bringing their F game instead of their A game. And you know what?
Wait,
I got to do it to everybody.
Thursday grade?
Everybody in the Cowboys. Jerry Jones brought his F game to that interview. Wow. Period. Wow, that's foolishness. You should be strengthening your team instead of causing distraction.
F for foolishness?
F for foolishness, F for fraudulent, F for frivolous.
Okay, good job.
There.
For fictional, which is what he's lying about. Derrick Henry could have signed him.
Okay. Jerry's become a bit of a menace.
Okay.
You think?
And there's no other, I can't defend it. So I try to defend the Cowboys team because I feel like they are unfairly, in some ways, held to a double standard through no fault of their own. Through some of Jerry's foolishness creates it, but I try to level set for some of the conversations. Like, it's not that I'm not some Cowboys fan. I've never been a Cowboys fan. I think that their successes are minimized and their failures are magnified. So I try to kind of.
It's like I would do with Garoppolo. I would defend him against.
Okay, sure. I mean, I suppose.
First off, and we're gonna let this clip play, but that's so not accurate. They're held to a different standard. So they're not expected to at least make an NFC championship game when they win 12 games, year after year after year. Dak Prescott's not supposed to get to an NFC championship game. He's only supposed to have 2 playoff games. The guy was made the highest paid quarterback not once but twice, and he's only won 2 playoff games. Well, in that same window of time since Dak Prescott has entered the league, a massive divisional rival, the Philadelphia Eagles, have gone to not 1 but 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl. So you think that the Cowboys shouldn't be held to this standard? The most popular team in the NFL, one of the most popular sports franchises on the planet, who have not even been to an NFC Championship game in what will be 30 years? You think that they don't get enough credit for what they do right? Because you want us to like talk about what they did in 1993 or something? That doesn't make any sense. They're not held to any like extra high double standard of any sort, or that their successes are minimized. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Under that logic, then why did Nick go on a whole rant before ripping Lamar Jackson and saying, I'm just doing what we do to all these guys. We have to hold Lamar to the standard where he has to, perform in the playoffs. Well, if you're going to hold Lamar Jackson to that standard, then you're certainly going to hold Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys to that standard. And so if you think it was unfair that people did this to the Dallas Cowboys, then don't do it to Lamar Jackson. Because he literally invokes Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. And says it's totally fair game. We do it to Dak and the Cowboys, so that's why I do it to Lamar. But if you think it's unfair for the Cowboys, then in your Lamar Jackson takes, you could say, hey, this is what a lot of people do for Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like it. I disagree with it, so I'm not going to do that to Lamar. That's what you should do.
But Jerry Jones, while always eccentric and while always doing these interviews, that's not new. Right. This is who he's been. The last 8 months with the Cowboys, the blow-by-blow of it has been disastrous ownership. There's no way around it. So let's just start playoff. They lose the playoff game. He then has a major decision. Do I bring back Mike McCarthy? Do I fire the head coach?
Yeah.
Do I extend the head coach? Do I bring back the head coach with no extension in a lame duck year? I would argue option 3 is the worst of all 3. That's the one he went with. His next major move or decision tree, free agency. Well, we know we have holes on this team and we know we are going to lose guys in free agency. The only way we're going to be able to sign guys, the easiest way, is if we get Dak Prescott's deal taken care of. No, I'm not going to do that, so we're going to sit out free agency, essentially sit it out as a whole. Their biggest acquisition, Eric Kendricks, they got by accident. Kendricks had agreed to terms somewhere else, I forget where, and then when the Cowboys brought in Mike Zimmer, he was like, no, I actually want to play with Mike, if you remember that. That was their biggest acquisition. So that was a whiff. During the draft, he reveals their draft plans, and maybe they would have gotten that running back, maybe not, but he prematurely reveals it. They get no one. So that was a whiff. He waits till the final moment to sign CeeDee Lamb with no possible explanation for that. That was a whiff. I defended them on the Dak Prescott thing repeatedly because I thought they weren't going to sign him.
Right.
I thought the idea was we actually are sitting out free agency on purpose as almost a informational gathering tool. We want to see before we pay Dak what he would look like without a stacked team. It's a odd choice, but I thought logically could make sense. Right. And instead, you got the worst of all worlds. Sat out free agency entirely, had a massive distraction all offseason, and then paid Dak top of the market anyway.
The morning of
the game. He folds his hand. And since the season started, right before the season started, we've had Dak Prescott have to say, I tuned Jerry out. Since the season started, every loss is a 5-alarm fire because of his comments. He creates controversy during a bye week because he wants to fire the radio host that he may or may not be able to fire. He goes after Mike McCarthy. He gives on-the-record long quotes about, just for the record, on these tours. I don't give a damn what any players would think. We're going to do it my way. And this is why I think it's so off the rails right now. It's all because he cannot bring himself to admit the problem with the Cowboys right now is there's not enough talent on the roster because he's the one in charge of the talent. And in the midst of the offseason, he gave a quote saying, he dropped 100 F-bombs and said, nobody could do this job better than me.
That wasn't great.
And so I try to bring a balance to a lot of the Cowboys stuff because I do think they are mocked in the media more than most teams.
Mocked?
I'm not even. I don't even mean by you. I mean maybe by guys wearing cowboy hats and making odd home videos. But I think this is indefensible. I think it's totally indefensible. And Jerry right now is their biggest stumbling block to success.
Okay. I mean, they're mocked because people think, hey, are you going to make it to the NFC Championship game? Or, hey, they were winning all these games last season, and people said, hey, you know what? They're actually not that good. It's fool's gold. And, Nick wants to balance it out by saying Dak Prescott's going to win the MVP and the Dallas Cowboys are going to go to the Super Bowl. And instead, at home, they get absolutely annihilated by the Packers. That's proof that what those other people were saying who were mocking them were closer to the truth than what Nick was saying. That's, sorry, Dallas Cowboys fans. That's the unfortunate truth. But I agree with everything he's saying, Nick, about Jerry Jones. And, I've talked at length about Jerry and what I think. At this point, it's kind of just sad. He's just getting older. He's just an old person right now. Right? And that's hard when you have an old person who has all this money and power. Like, I have experience with old people, not old people with all this money and power. Right? My experience with older people is they lack money and power. So it's a little bit more manageable. But when an old person has all this money and power, I don't know what you do about it, quite frankly. I really, really don't. So it is absolutely a really, really, really messy situation for the Dallas Cowboys. I really talked more about it at length, and I don't want to bore you with just kind of repeating myself. But the reality is this, right? All this stuff and all this crazy wonky stuff is coming out now because they're not winning. The truth is that this has gone on for years. This has always been a fundamental problem with the Dallas Cowboys. The difference is that they won these regular season games, and so they were able to hide behind that. But think about every time they lost in the playoffs. There was always wonky, weird stuff. Jerry Jones saying bizarre, weird stuff. Dak Prescott saying good to the fans for throwing trash onto the field at the refs, then have to backtrack and be like, oh, no, never mind. Like, when they're winning, they're able to hide all of this type of stuff. The difference right now is that this season, they're not winning during the regular season. And they lost spectacularly 3 times, right? Like, they got rocked by the Ravens. They got rocked by the Saints. They got annihilated by the Detroit Lions. So this puts all this front and center right now. And it makes everything else look so absurd and clown showish when you really think about it. Like how Dak Prescott signed the morning of the game and then comes in all decked out in a, all fancy like a mega superstar. Right? And it was like, that's right, baby, we're here. Then they beat the Browns, who are obviously an awful team. And it's like, that's right, Dak Prescott just got paid. New season. We got Ezekiel Elliott back. Micah, CD. We're going to be on top of the world right now. And then it all just collapsed. And don't blame injuries, because they were losing before all the injuries. Okay, they were getting embarrassed before the injuries. And I got news for you. Having your wide receiver 2 and having Micah, it wasn't going to suddenly make you competitive with the Detroit Lions. Nobody can believe that. So this team has had fundamental issues from day one. For years. That they're just not good enough. Whether it's Mike McCarthy, Jerry, Dak, whoever. Because this is what I keep saying. Because that, again, like, I forget who said this, if it was Brew or Nick. How these same concepts and plays got them to 12 wins last year. What changed? And it's like, yeah, it got them to the 12 wins against inferior teams. Against teams that were not that good. But those same plays and concepts were not good against better teams. But it is interesting because Jerry Jones built you the talent that got you to win these 12 games year after year after year. Mike McCarthy was the coach that was able to get you these wins year after year after year. Dak Prescott, quarterback, right? Like, so, again, so where do you want to put the blame then? So that's what it's like. Who blames them for the lack of playoff success? That's what I keep asking Dallas Cowboys fans, because they all want to take pride, and even the media will say, hey, they won these 12 games or so year after year, but Mike McCarthy's the problem, Dak's the problem, Jerry's the problem. Well, then which is it? So he's only good enough to get you to get like 12, 13 wins in the regular season, but not in the playoffs? Is it the coach? Is it the quarterback? Is it the team as constructed? And if it's the coach, then do you blame Jerry for hiring him or not firing him? And if it's not the coach, then is it the players? Because if you're going to say it's the players, then that Jerry needs to do a better job. Why are they good enough during the regular season? Because a lot of the Cowboys fans that praise that they won those 12 games say, it's not tomato cans. Winning 12 games is hard no matter what. So then again, why do you not win then in the playoffs? Like, where does this blame keep going? That's what I keep asking. It's like, well, the players don't show up in the playoffs. Is that coaching's fault, or is that just a fundamental issue of the players? And if it's the coaching fault, again, they're good enough to coach a team to 12 plus wins a season, but not in the playoffs. And then if they're not good in the playoffs, then get a new coach. Like, it's just, you see, it just becomes circular. It just becomes messier and messier and messier. So that's the conclusion. The Dallas Cowboys are just a mess. And this is why I disagreed with it was a smart idea to keep Dak on free agency and not get a lot of talent or what, which also doesn't really make sense. Because now that Nick is saying, oh, I thought it was good that they kind of did with Dak, because they wanted to see what Dak could do with not a lot of talent. Yet he still had them being a top team in the NFL. Going into the season, he had them being a top team in the NFL. He had them winning the division, right? He had them going deep. Not to mention, even after the season unfolded, even before all of the injuries, he said that the Cowboys were going to beat the Detroit Lions. And he said that if that happens, they are a top team in the NFL. Without a doubt, they are the top 1 or 2 team in the NFC. So that's what Nick believes. So now it's like, oh, but they don't have a lot of talent. Well, so then how are they going to overcome this lack of talent then if they didn't have the talent? Again, that's where, again, we just keep going in circles. Things just get messier and messier and messier. So it was never a good idea from my viewpoint. You absolutely should have moved on from Mike McCarthy this season. And before you paid Dak, you went out and got a Ben Johnson, a Harbaugh. Use their wisdom. Use this season as a barometer. Is Dak the guy? Yes or no? And they say yes, I can. I'm Harbaugh. I'm Ben Johnson. I can do damage with Dak. Let's go. Pay the guy. Let's get this going. Okay, great. Now I feel better about signing Dak. You know, again, whatever it may be. But you ran it back this season, doing the same thing that you've done for the last few years, except now you're even worse. And then somehow you're expecting a better result or a more defined result. What have we learned about Dak this season? He needs a really good team to succeed. Okay. What have we learned about McCarthy? He needs like better players to win, I guess. Okay. He can't elevate talent. Okay. Like, it's like, what are we learning? Jerry Jones isn't a good GM. Didn't do enough in the free agency. The whole thing just continues to be a mess, honestly. And I really honestly don't know what the Cowboys do from here. I really don't, because it's, there's too many fundamental source issues for the Cowboys at this point. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, McCarthy, Dak, and everything else that's going on in Dallas? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.